Welcome to Ren Behind the Practice. I'm Sophie Campisi. I'm a holistic business strategist and startup expert, and I spend a lot of my time in conversation with practitioners, coaches, and healers about the behind the scenes of their businesses. What I started noticing is that some of the most honest, important conversations about building a practice were happening quietly, one-on-one, behind the scenes, and often in isolation. Most practitioners are incredibly skilled at the work they do with their clients, but very few of us were ever taught or trained in how to build a successful startup business. And suddenly we've been left to figure it out on our own. This podcast exists to bring those conversations forward, the dreams, the uncertainty, the highs and lows, the recalibrations, and the messy middle. My hope is that by normalizing these conversations, we can soften the stigma, feel less alone, and start closing the gaps together. Today's guest is Adriannia Rouley. Adriannia is a holistic lifestyle entrepreneur, someone who works professionally in a way that involves the things that light her up personally and playfully. And she is the CEO of the Adriannia Company. Adriannia, it is so great to have you here. Thank you for showing up and having this conversation with me today.
Thank you for having me here.
Before we look behind the scenes today, can you share with us a little bit more about the work that you do?
Yes. So my work is very multi-layered. And I love to start there because in the entrepreneurial space in general, I have just found that people expect you to be one thing or be in one place, to pick a lane and stay there. And that's just not the way my brain works. That's not the way my energy works. And I love starting there with just saying, you don't have to do what's always expected if that's just not what works for you. So, as you mentioned in my introduction, I am a holistic lifestyle entrepreneur, and anything that I do is not disconnected from another part of myself. So, when I go out and I live my life, it's actually informing my work. When I go out and do things that I consider to be play, that's going out in nature, that's being out with my partner at the bowling alley, that's just going for a walk downtown and just taking in the real world. I consider all that to be play, but it's also informing my work. So that is when I get to come into a space where there's an element of life where I'm personally learning and developing, and an area of play that's also kind of work where I'm building brands on those little niche things that are actually work, but they're so fun that people mistake it as something that, like, that can't be work, that can't be a business. But yes, it can be.
What are the major pillars or the major pillar of your business model? It doesn't sound like is it one-on-one work? Like, do you work with people directly, or you have other pillars of your business model that bring in revenue?
In some spaces, yes. So I'll go very niche to the thing that I am working on right now. My brand, Tarot and Color, it's a holistic use of tarot for personal empowerment. That is very one on one because nobody's life is going to look like the next person. So those sessions are one on one. When I work there as an intuitive tarot reader, I am one on one with somebody. But outside of that, yes, there are places where I am one to many. When I am making money from more media distribution, of course, that's one message to many people, one message to a large audience. So it just depends on the area. And that's what I've said is multi-layered. It's not one thing everywhere in one place.
So do you do other types of things? You mentioned tarot. Are there other modalities or specialties that you have that you focus in on, or it really is truly evolving a lot? Or do you have other areas of expertise where you're doing specific things with different groups of people?
Yes, a few different things. So if it's easier to explain this way, I'll step back and say it from the perspective of being the CEO of my company. So, my company is a holding company of different brand communities and business collect. So, one of those brand communities would be Tarot and Color, but another one is Builder Cave, and that's a little different. That's a website builder platform. So it's very different. It's a very different use. Me personally, I am multi-passionate and multifaceted. So that's the element of play that I have, where it's like, I love this thing. I want to turn it into a brand community, or I love talking about this. I want this to be a business collective space where I can talk about it and bring other people in who can talk about it too and expand that way. So it's again just different spaces, different veins.
Is there one of them that you started with, or one of them that you find gets the most traction the easiest?
Yes, so I actually started, I'll go into this. I like to say that I accidentally stepped into entrepreneurship at 21 years old. That was 1 year after I found myself homeless and unemployed. And a natural thing, a natural skill that I had that got me started was graphic design. So that is always my safe phase, have fun phase when nothing else works. It's like, I know that this still works and this is still fun to do and even more valuable now in the age of everyone looking the same, just due to certain technologies that we have. So that is always a safe space for me to go back and connect with those clients. I need graphic design. That's it's practical, and a lot of people in the business space need that. So it's always different ways I can just go play in my own company.
When you look ahead to the next 6 to 12 months, what goals do you have for your work and your business?
I want to be able to shift the mentality of people around me to being community first. That is the entire mission of just everything that I do is to be community first. That's regardless of if we're entrepreneur to entrepreneur or entrepreneur to a customer base or any kind of way, just be community first. Let's not worry about the titles. Let's just worry about the fact that we want to be here with each other and we want to get to know each other and see each other better.
So, in your business, does that look like you doing more group things?
I do take a community first approach. So again, I'll use tarot and color as an example. Every Wednesday, I'm on Facebook Live and I'm doing free community readings for the people who show up. So that's just an example of yes, this is a business. Yes, there are paid services behind it. But even if that's not your thing and you just want to know, like, what is this world all about? Like, who are these people? That's just the opportunity for anyone to come in and be a part of a growing community.
Are there any of your various businesses or projects or areas that you are seeking to implement something new in order to get more client growth? Or in general, are you taking like different approaches for different ones? Or are you doing generally the same thing for all of them and seeing if there's like some growth in the different areas?
So far, it's been the same thing for each one. My strategy is to always start within myself and to start by showing myself. And that's the way that I attract those different types of people. And I'm able to lead them to where they go. So some people want to come in and work with me as a customer. Some people want to actually come in and work with me. Like, is there something I can do to support your social media? Can I come in here and do this work? I'm trained in this too. I want to do this too. So it's the same approach of I start with me from me and I expand out from there.
When it comes to, getting to these next levels, like you mentioned, of community or expanding your various businesses, more clients, more consistency, more flow, what feels hardest about getting there or putting some of those things into motion?
Sometimes the hardest thing is being misunderstood. So that's very intangible, but very personal because anybody, when you're misunderstood, it makes you want to pause for a second. Am I saying something wrong? Am I actually doing something wrong? And that was a very hard thing for me for so long. And it's not completely gone, but I am growing out of it. And that just comes from me knowing clearly and confidently what I'm doing.
Yeah, I mean, this comes up over and over and over again with people in our pocket of the world. Usually it's because a couple of things we have going on. Almost all of us, if not all of us, are visionaries in some way. We're seeing out into the future. We don't always know how far out ahead we're seeing. So it's through my years, it took me a long time to understand, like, wow, like what I'm seeing, that could be 5 years, 15, 20 years out. I don't always know exactly how far out I'm seeing. So we usually have that going on where like we can see something so clearly. And then it's like confusing to us when other people can't see it, especially before we have that acknowledged and nurtured. For me, it was absolutely like that. I didn't even realize I was a visionary. I didn't realize other people weren't seeing what I was seeing, weren't able to see into the future the way that I am when I was younger. Like that didn't even cross my mind because it was so second nature to me. And I remember it took me into my 20s having a mentor that was like, that used that word with me. And I was like, what? So yeah, not everyone has the gift of vision. Now, I'm not saying it's better or worse to have it. Those of us who are visionaries know it can be very, very difficult to be able to see something that's in the future that's not here in the right here and right now, because you can feel really misunderstood. You can feel, like the Merlin doing everything backwards. It can feel really lonely. It can feel really isolating, especially when it comes to translating that into a business and how to articulate to people around you or others, like what you're seeing or what that is. I use this phrase a lot, especially when I used to work in my capacity as a practitioner and coach: reverse grief. I kind of coined this term, whereas grief is losing something that we have. Well, what about the reverse grief that visionaries experience, where we see something, but it's not here yet? And we don't always know if it's going to get here. And that can cause like an instantaneous kind of subtle sense of grief for seeing possibility of something that is amazing or healing or can help a lot of people, can support a lot of people, but it's not actually here yet. And we don't know if it's going to get here, and we don't know how far out that's going to be. Like that's a real experience that we're experiencing that can, like you said, make us feel misunderstood. It's confusing. It can be incredibly confusing.
Yes. And to your point, I love the word visionary. I describe it the same way, but I also say that I'm just highly intuitive. I knew that at age 7, from as young as 7 years old, there was something in me that told me I would be exactly where I am today. It's very untraditional, it's very unconventional, and it's very different. Even in the space of entrepreneurship, it's very different to be multi passionate and to say that I do want to do different things. I don't want to be known for one thing. Like I have the one place within myself that I come from, but as far as businesses, I do want to, and I do believe that I can hold a lot of different ones. I'm not going to do it all by myself. Of course, there are going to be people supporting me in different places where it makes sense for them, but I don't want to be one thing.
Totally. Yeah. Something else that, you were talking about that I hear over and over and over again is just the natural gap. It's like the double-edged sword aspect of not just being a visionary, but then also having areas of expertise or competency that naturally brings us to this place that is further away from the people that we want to help. And it's part of, one of my areas of expertise, helping people translate their gifts and their brilliance to those people that need it, are craving it, that they're meant to be serving. The more less sexy, less fun, but really important business distinction that is translating gifts, skills, brilliance to real market demand. Like that is what we are all trying to figure out. Like we know how good we are at what we do with our clients. We know we can see the vision, we know the possibility. But when it comes to the business, there's still a process of actually translating that, working that backwards. I joke around, I work with a bunch of Merlins who do things backwards. How do we work it backwards to find those people, translate it in a way that they do understand what we're saying? So we don't talk and they look at us like we have 10 heads, or they're like, huh? Because not only is it frustrating or uncomfortable or, whatever it might be for us personally, you and I talked about this before we started recording. There's a cost to that. If we aren't able to find the people that we are here in this lifetime to serve, there's a huge cost to that, not just for us personally, but also for the people that we are meant to be the guide, the way shower, the leader for, to help guide them through whatever chapter of life they need us to help guide them through. So it's a big reality for us.
Yes, and that's why for me personally, community first has been the best solution, especially for things like tarot, and especially because my personal audience, from my personal upbringing, has been people who may look at tarot and be like, I would never go anywhere near that. What are you doing? But when people come into my community and they see how it's actually being used holistically for personal empowerment, all of those more negative connotations and ideas about what tarot is, it starts to not go away, but that's where the understanding comes in. And the person can be like, maybe I still don't agree with it, but I understand it. So again, community first is what allows that to work for me.
Is there anything else that has felt especially heavier than you thought it would in your journey of entrepreneurship?
The thing that has been heaviest for me is leaning into my intuition, because my journey was, again, I joke, it was very accidental. I stepped into my journey as a survival response. I am homeless. I am not making money. What do I do? And in that, I was building and I was attracting from a place that was very intellectual. It's common sense that I need this to work. And there is nothing wrong with having points where your intellect needs to take over. There are some places where you have to be analytical, you have to be in reality. But there are also other places where if I would not lean into my intuition, all of the wrong things happen. And not because I wanted them to happen, but just because, like I said at the beginning, that's not the way my energy works. I have to do what's in alignment with me and what I believe works for me, for those things that actually work for me.
Absolutely. It's something that I relate to personally, and I hear it over and over again. And it's part of what can make, again, it's another double-edged sword. Part of what makes us so talented, part of our genius, part of our brilliance is the fact that we are wide awake, autonomous beings. We're not just going to follow the line of sheep. We are walking to the beat of our own drum. That is who we be. It makes us uniquely suited to be really amazing leaders and really bring forth change. Like it's a prerequisite. Like it's necessary for us all to have that. On the flip side, it can make it harder because we're not following the person in front of us and just doing the things. We're breaking out of that and entering this whole new landscape where we're trying to, like you said, follow our intuition and learn. And we're trying to navigate, but it is a little bit like being out in the unknown. Not so much anymore because there are so many of us now that we can kind of come together and talk about it and learn from each other and learn skills. But it's part of what makes us really good at what we do, but it can also make it harder because we're not just going to do the thing that everyone says, just do this. Of course, we might try things. We're going to try things, but it's going to be on our own. It's going to be of our own will. It's going to be, oh, well, this didn't work, so I'm going to ditch it. We can't do stuff that isn't in alignment with us. We can't do stuff that isn't aligned with our nervous system, isn't aligned with our values, isn't aligned with our integrity, even if it just makes us feel gross or cringy, like we're not going to do it, which again is part of our genius, but it makes other things really hard because it's much easier to just follow the person in front of you. Just keep following. You don't have to make many decisions. You don't have to listen to your intuition or figure that out. And a lot of the things that you said, and it's a real thing that we're all up against.
Agreed.
I didn't ask you this, but I am curious. Did you go straight into entrepreneurship and you've always been in this path of entrepreneurship, or were at some point you ever an employee working for someone, so you have that comparison or that juxtaposition, or did you go straight into entrepreneurship?
Oh, absolutely. I started off very normal. My first job was at McDonald's, and the job that sent me into the direction of entrepreneurship was actually me working directly under a co-CEO. And after that, when I lost that job, I wanted to just get back to normal. I started working the first jobs that I could find. They were all oddball jobs. And eventually, I even had a full time job again as a studio photographer. So everything in me was trying to do things the quote unquote normal way, or the way that I was taught, or the way that I was told. And that did not work out for me. Doing things the way that I was told, I'm not going to say directly led me to becoming homeless, but that's what happened. And when I stepped into entrepreneurship, it just felt way more natural, even though the beginning was very scary because it was unknown and I was coming out of that season. It still felt very natural. And to be completely transparent, it took me only 3 months to match my full time income from those previous full time jobs that I would have. Only 3 months. I kept growing from strictly word of mouth. I never paid for an advertisement. All I did was show up as myself on social media, and the people who started working with me would just refer me to person to after person and next person. And I grew that way. It was just so natural. It was not a struggle. It was not hard. It just came to me naturally.
And that was your web design? That was the original thing that you started?
Yes, that was the graphic design. And
Graphic design.
to that, I started off with graphic design, and that was all I knew how to do from some courses that I just took free online. And I had a client who asked me, "Can you also do my website?" I said yes, and I had never designed a website in my life, but I taught myself how to do it. And that's why entrepreneurship, it just feels so right for me because that is my energy. I am a builder. I love to build things, and what I don't know how to do, I will learn. And once it gets to a certain point, I want to build again. But I also like building teams and communities. So I love being able to put people in places and put skills where they belong and build out things that way. But this is it's a fun space for me.
As you have started additional layers to your business after the original graphic design, web design, did anything surprise you layering on new things? Like, was there anything that was different, or has it been generally the same process of starting somewhere, word of mouth, or has anything been like unexpected?
As I started adding on more layers, the only things that were a little unexpected was just the way that other people react to different things. I don't think anything about the business side of it was unexpected because I've been through it enough times to know that there's always some expectancy of the unexpected. So that I'm indirectly prepared for. But it was just the response from people. And it goes back to when you start by boxing yourself in as one person who does this one thing, that makes it really hard for you to express your whole self when you are multi passionate. So now I am essentially rebuilding myself and putting myself out there differently as a holistic lifestyle entrepreneur so I don't run into that problem again. And it's not because it hurts me, but sometimes it actually hurts other people in a way that I don't intend to. Like, I care so deeply for people, not necessarily needing approval from them, but just having them know what to expect if you're with me in my space. Like, you're going to see a lot of different things here. So be prepared for that.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it's really real. It's, graphic design, everyone knows it, very neutral, going compared to something like tarot that could be very out there for different people. And it comes back to the fact of us being visionaries and way showers and pioneers and navigating the reality. I think you and I talked about this a little before we started. Yoga now, today, no one's going to bat an eye. You say yoga, no one's going to bat an eye. You say breath work, probably a meditation, no one's going to bat an eye. 50 years ago, people would have been like, huh? What? Wow, they're kind of out there. They're kind of weird. So my part of saying that is just to remind you and everyone else listening, it's just part of the journey of being a way shower, being someone that's kind of on the fringe and being a guide and leading people into what we know is the future. We know these things in 50 years. No one's going to bat an eye to some of the stuff that we're bringing up. But right now, if you're a way shower, if you're a pioneer, if you're a little bit ahead, there's always going to be a little bit of that friction of making people uncomfortable, of talking about things that are outside of someone's comfort zone or that they haven't heard about before. And, we all have our own process of navigating that and figuring that out. But just because it happens, you already know this. I'm not telling you something you don't already know. Doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong. It's just part of the process. It's part of the role that we chose to come here in this lifetime to play. And luckily for us, there's so many of us. And so we can come together and have these conversations. It's part of why this podcast even exists and why you and I are talking, but you're not doing anything wrong. That's just part of being a way shower. Last question before we wrap up today. If you could wave a magic wand and have one thing solved or fixed for you in your building process, what would it be?
It would be for me to just fully step into who I need to be to make things happen just a little faster. I do think I am working at a sustainable pace, and I definitely do not want to rush things that are going to take time to come into fruition, to manifest in the real world. But if I'm being honest with myself, there are some times where my needing to make sure everyone is comfortable around me may slow me down a little bit. And that's coming from a place of love. And I would never want to take that out of myself. But as an entrepreneur, there are some times when I have to move faster and I cannot wait for certain things to be accepted. And I just have to keep going.
Adrianna, thank you so much for joining me today to have this conversation. And for those of you who are listening, if any part of this resonated, you're in the right place, please reach out. I want to hear from you. And if you want to reach Adrianna directly, the links to all of her social media profiles and her YouTube are in the show notes. Thank you again, Adrianna, and to everyone else, thank you for listening. And we'll see you for the next episode of Ren Behind the Practice.